28-year-old gravida 1, para 0, whose bag of water just broke and it looks like pea soup. The baby pops out, appears to be full term, but is floppy, unresponsive, and covered in thick goo.
All right, you have your scenario. Let's go ahead and get started. Grab your cheat sheets or whatever you're using, but if it's Broslow, red goes to the head and head to the heel. You can clearly see this little baby falls into this gray zone. Now to Scott for your quick tip.
So remember from an earlier quick tip that 90% of the babies who pop out do not need CPR. They do not need to be intubated, and they certainly don't need a belly button line with epi. However, the other 10% of the time is when you've got a baby who comes out who's sick as a dog. And if they're sick as a dog and they're covered in tar, otherwise known as meconium, some of y'all have been at this long enough to remember that they used to teach that if a kid was covered in tar, that you had to figure out whether the tar was thick or thin. And then they said, you know what, that's too much to remember. And happily now they say just look at the kid and say, is the kid sick or not sick? And if the kid looks cute, but they're dipped in 30 weight, the kid looks cute. You happily take a breath of relief because you dry the kid off, you can suck out some boogers should you wish. But if the kid's screaming and moving, the kid looks cute. The difference is if they look sick. And sick, forget what they teach you in the book, that's too much to remember. Sick in real life meant the kid didn't mind you putting an endotracheal tube down their mouth. That kid was sick. And some of y'all remember how up until not that long ago they taught that you should hold the kid down, intubate them, and once the tube was in, you hooked up your meconium aspirator, otherwise known as a little booger sucker, on the end of the tube, and you sucked out the trachea. And the theory was that if you could suck out the big chunks before this kid took their first breath, that they would hopefully have an easier time breathing. However, in the last go-round of NRP, otherwise known as resus for babies, they've happily now suck the meconium out of the trachea out of the equation. The rationale is fancy and multifactorial, but the moral of the story is if a kid is sick enough that you need to bag them, you probably ought to be bagging. And at the end of the day, the primary issue is bagging, not boogers. So therefore, going ahead and intubating the trachea to suck out the meconium is no longer part of the resus process anymore.